Winter steelhead are the fish of 1,000 casts, and today I'm going to share 10 tips to help you catch and land more winter steelhead. What is up out there, Mavericks? Welcome back to the channel, to the latest fishing tips video where we're going to talk about winter steelhead fishing, one of my favorite species to target. And during the coldest time of the year, it can be really challenging to chase winter steelhead, but also very rewarding and satisfying. I love winter steelhead fishing for the big hookups, but also the really quiet times in the river and some of the best wintry snow scenery ever. So whether you're new into winter steelhead fishing or you want to improve your skill set, I've got just the 10 winter steelhead tips for you. Now, tip number 10 is to master one river system. Now, across the United States, you've got plenty of river systems that have really good runs of winter steelhead. And in the Northwest, you've got a lot of river systems flowing in from the coast in Washington State, Oregon, and California that have some really awesome winter steelhead runs. And it can be daunting to fish every river system or go to the one that has the hot bite at the time. But if you're a newbie for winter steelhead fishing, one of the best ways to get better at steelhead fishing, as well as to be able to get some bites, is to just focus in and fish one river. And for myself, when I was starting out winter steelhead fishing, it was really focusing and delivering on my techniques, fishing different styles of baits, and becoming stronger and being more confident as a winter steelhead angler. And one of the best ways that I did that was focusing on one river system, mastering my skill sets, and then being able to take that and go out to different bodies of water. And one pro tip as you get started into winter steelhead fishing, watch out for trees or shrubs around you because it's really easy to hook up on a tree. Don't ask me how I know. Coming into tip number 9 is to fish the river on the fall. When the river is on the rise, a lot of winter steelhead are trying to push up into the deeper pockets or get into those spawning grounds. And a lot of times when the river is on the rise, they're shooting up the system really fast, and they're not going to stop. But also the water's going to be very dinky and off color. It's going to be that chocolate browning color, especially with all that mud, sediment, and grime that's getting into the river system. When it's on the rise, that's one of the hardest times to catch winter steelhead. But as the river is coming on the drop, the water clarity is clearing up, the river is being more stable, and those fish are going to be a little bit more active. They're not going to be trying to jump up or run up the river system. They're going to be able to spread out and kind of settle in a little bit, and that's one of the best times to target winter steelhead. So as you're paying really close to the river level in the system, if it's on the rise, you might be better off staying home. Whether it's on the drop, you're going to give yourself a better chance at hooking up and getting a nice chrome bright steelhead. Now, tip number 8 is to sleep in and fish later in the day. And that time frame that I love to fish in the afternoon is around that 10 o'clock range all the way until about the 3 or 4 o'clock range as the sun is starting to set over the trees. And the reason why I really love to go winter steelhead fishing later in the day is it allows the sun to get up and the water to warm up just a little bit, especially on cold front days or where you have some decent temperature drops from like the high 40s into the low 30s as the high temperature. The water temp is also going to cool a bunch, which is going to make the winter steelhead a little bit more lethargic and a little less bitey for every single bait that you're going to present. And so that's why I love fishing later in the day. Let that sun get up high, allow the water to warm up just a little bit, and the fish are going to be a little bit more aggressive and a little bit more bitey. So sleeping in will definitely pay off when it comes to winter steelhead fishing, as long as you set your alarm. Now, tip number 7 is to change your bait color out often. And with so many different colors of beads and worms and spinners and other baits that we have out there chasing winter steelhead can be really finessey and really particular, especially on different condition days or when the water's kind of in that not clear but not dirty framework where it's kind of in that middle sea green color. They can be very particular of what color they want to chase. And even in really clear water, you got to have maybe really precise, really natural colors to get the winter steelhead to even look at your bait or even try to go after it. So as you're starting to fish along, if the steelhead aren't biting on one color, so swap out your worm, your bead, your spinner, change out different colors. But also throughout the day, the water conditions are going to change as well. So swap out those different baits and different colors, and you might find that one exact color or that bait where the steelhead are going to go absolutely nuts. Now, tip number 6 is to pay attention to your bait size, and this is really going to come down to the first factor, which is the clarity of water before you even make your first cast. In the wintertime, when you have really low and clear conditions, you're going to want to size down your baits really small. When you're talking about worms and beads and spinners, you want to go with that smaller size presentation because the steelhead are going to be able to see it from farther away, and you want to go as natural as possible. Now, in dirty water conditions, this is where you're going to want to go big baits. I'm talking about 20mm beads, size 4 blue fox spinners, the biggest, 6-inch plus worms that you can find possible, even those big jigs. Dirty water, you definitely want to go big, but it's really that middle section of water clarity where it's not clear, but it's not super dirty water. That's where you're going to have to play around with different sizes of baits, and that's why I say for this tip, you got to play around with different size baits throughout the day, throughout the season, because the conditions are going to really dictate what sizes you should use. And when you find that perfect balance and that perfect size bait, it's going to be a big game changer for you. And when you're able to hone in and get that perfect size bait, you're going to get some big fish and some big takedowns throughout the season. Now, coming into tip number 5 is to watch the water level. And on any river system, as the water's flowing up and down throughout the season with rainstorms or just different weather patterns and systems, the river level is going to change constantly, which also means that each pocket of water that you fish is also going to change constantly. And so the more you fish, especially like in tip number 10, where you fish the same river system over and over again, you fish the same holes, you're going to fish it at different levels of water, which is going to allow you to figure out which types of baits and where to cast. And it's going to give you that opportunity to understand and fish each section of water differently, because between an 8-foot hole and a 6-foot hole, as the water's starting to drop, is going to fish very differently. The steelhead are going to line up in different places. They're going to get out of the current in different areas. Even where there's more space towards the bank where they've got more cover, the height of the river system is going to really dictate where in the hole that the steelhead could be. But as the river level changes over the season as well, you got to be careful about that one slippery rock you forgot about, and you might fall straight in the river on your butt. Now, tip number 4 is to go with a professional guide the first time, and especially for young steelheaders or anglers that want to get into winter steelhead fishing. When I started out winter steelhead fishing, one of the ways that I was able to learn a lot of information is to go out with a guide for a day. You can ask them so many questions. They are just a knowledge base of different river systems, different techniques, and you will get more out of that masterclass going out with a guide in one day than I think you can learn over the course of a month from any videos or articles. And when it comes to winter steelhead fishing, there's a huge learning curve. There's so much to learn about reading the water, different baits, and it's not lights out fishing when it comes to winter steelhead. This is where going with a guide, you'll be able to get so much information and be able to ask so many questions. And one of the things with fishing guides is they're teachers on the water. So utilize their knowledge, ask them tons of questions, learn, sponge, and then go out and go catch them yourself. Now, tip number 3 is to start out and focus on one technique. And for somebody who's a beginner, this is the best way to master a single technique and really get into winter steelhead fishing. There are so many techniques and baits when it comes to steelhead fishing in the wintertime. You've got beads, worms, jigs, egg sacs, you've got beads, you've got spinners, you've got plugs, you can be side drifting. There are so many different techniques and baits, and it can be a lot to take in. Instead of trying to learn all the techniques at one time, is to focus in and really master one technique, get really good at it, and that's going to allow you to increase and improve your fishing technique as well as get you on more steelhead. Now, tip number 2 is to make the same cast over and over again in the same fishing hole, but in different spots in the water. Remember, we're talking about winter steelhead fishing, and winter being the key word here, because in the wintertime, those fish are going to be much more lethargic. Their metabolism is slowing down. They're coming from the ocean into the river systems, and they just become much more lethargic in that cooler water. So one of the things you're going to have to do as an angler is make that short cast, make that cast into the medium portion of the river, make that long cast on the other side, and then cast over and over again into that same spot, because those lethargic fish sometimes can be right there and you just gotta boink them right in the face and then they'll smack the heck out of the bait. But that just requires you making the same cast over and over and over again in the same hole, and sometimes you'll drive the steelhead nuts and then you're gonna get an absolutely crazy bite. But when you make that same cast over and over again, just watch out for your buddy walking behind you, or you might hook him right in the head. Don't ask me how I know. So now that we've gone through tips 10 through 2, well, what's tip number 1? Well, that is to just go winter steelhead fishing. Layer up, embrace the cold, embrace that the conditions are absolutely gonna suck, but the takedowns and the fishing is gonna be absolutely awesome. And that's what I love about winter steelhead fishing. It's the fishing, it's the camaraderie, it's the scenery, it's the quietness on the river, and the challenge every single day to catch these really amazing fish and be able to have some epic stories at the end of the day, especially of those big trophies that you were able to take that photo of. And there you guys have it, the top 10 winter steelhead fishing tips video. Hope you guys got some great information, and now you're able to take that out on the river and go catch yourself a big winter steelhead. I'll see you guys on the next video, and as always, the outdoors is a gift, share it with others.